Hey, how about it, race fans? Richard Allen of motorsportsreport.net, and I'm here to tell you why the weekend of September the 27th through September the 29th matters in the world of racing. We've got a lot of things going on and a lot of things not going on, and part of why this weekend matters is for those things that are not going on. But let's go ahead and get into it. First of all, there's the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series. That series was supposed to kick off its Big River Steel chase for the championship this weekend at Brownstown, Indiana, at the Brownstown Speedway, but that's not going to happen. Mother Nature had other plans. As a matter of fact, not only did the two races that were supposed to take place this weekend get canceled, or I'm sorry, got postponed, but the race was going to be a combination event with a high limit sprint car series at Atomic Speedway in Ohio for Tuesday night also has been canceled. That race has for sure gone away. Series officials and track officials at Brownstown are still trying to work out some sort of a replacement date for the two Brownstown shows, the C.J. Rayburn Memorial, which was supposed to be a $10,000 to win race on Friday night, and then the $50,000 to win Jackson 100 was supposed to take place on Saturday. But neither of those are going to happen on the scheduled dates anyway. Hopefully, they can find something to make up for those races. But here's why all that matters. Last year, of course, the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series had a winner-take-all finale in the Dirt Track World Championship at Eldora Speedway, which ultimately Hudson O'Neal came away as the Lucas Oil champion. Of course, Brandon Sheppard won that race, but he was not one of the four contenders. Well, this year, the four contenders, of course, as you may or may not already know, Ricky Thornton Jr., Jonathan Davenport, Devin Moran, and Tim McCready are going to race it out for the championship. But instead of a one-race winner-take-all deal, it's supposed to be a seven-race playoff. Well, let's just say for now, for what we know, three races have been eliminated. Now, again, we'll see if those two Brownstown shows, or even if one of those Brownstown shows can be made up. But if it comes down to just four races left now, which two of them will be at Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania Motor Speedway coming up next weekend. And then, of course, they've got that big finale, the track finale at East Bay Raceway Park coming up later on after that. And then eventually they'll finish off just like they did last year in the Dirt Track World Championship at Eldora Speedway, big 100,000 to win race there. So it's down to four races now if those Brownstown races can't be made up. Here's why that matters. Here's the situation. If you're one of those four drivers running for the championship, McCready, Moran, Davenport, and Thornton, you now have less opportunity to have a bad race in those, since there's not seven races anymore. And remember too, and I wrote about this earlier this week on motorsportsreport.net, these four guys are not racing in a separate points deal against just each other. They're racing against the entire field. And let's say you have a bad night, something goes wrong early in the race, and you wind up, say, finishing 22nd in the feature. Well, you've got all those non-playoff racers ahead of you that are taking points that could have been yours against the other guys. So you have less room now for one bad finish that you might have been able to withstand in a seven-race playoff. Now it's only a four-race playoff. So whatever happens here could be disastrous if it turns out that you have a bad race. That might not have been the case with seven races. So we'll see what happens. And unlike NASCAR, Lucas Oil doesn't have a win and advance to the next round type situation. There are no rounds. It's just the seven races, or however many they wind up being able to get in, and whoever scores the most points out of those. It's not, you don't have to necessarily win any of them. You come in second every week and probably wind up winning the championship. But these rainouts, the races not happening, matter because now the number of opportunities to score points is reduced from what it would have been. All right, and then if we move on to the World of Outlaws Late Model Series, it looks like their two races this weekend at Boot Hill Speedway in Louisiana and then Rocket Raceway Park in Texas. It looks like the weather's going to leave those alone. They're both 15,000 to win races. So coming in, you got four-time series champion Brandon Sheppard leading the points, as he has for much of the year. And then he is 54 points ahead of a tie for second between Nick Hoffman and Bobby Pierce. And of course, if you've been keeping up with dirt late model racing at all over the last few weeks and months, you know Bobby Pierce has been on an incredible tear. He's reeled off all these crown jewel wins and other feature wins, but he was behind in the points because of a penalty that was handed out after Georgia Florida Speed Weeks, when it was found that there was a tire that did not conform to the Hoosier benchmark. So he was handed initially a big penalty, big fine, suspensions. Ultimately, that was changed. It was amended to a smaller points penalty. So he was able to remain in the hunt. And since July, he's done a lot to cut in to that disadvantage that he had because of the penalty. So like I said, he and Nick Hoffman are now 54 points back of Brandon Sheppard. Like the Lucas guys, they have just a few races to make their move. There are 5 races with these two this weekend. There will be 5 races left on the World of Outlaws Case Construction Late Model Series schedule. Of course, these two at Boot Hill and Rocket Raceway Park, and then there'll be 3 nights of racing at the dirt track at Charlotte in the World Finals coming up. All 3 of those will be points-paying races. The 2 races this weekend are 15,000 each. I believe at Charlotte there are 2 15,000s to win and a 25,000 to win that will set them up. So it'll be interesting to see, can Pierce or can Hoffman cut in to Sheppard's lead. Sheppard's been steady all throughout the season. He may not have piled up the kind of wins that we're used to seeing out of the all-time winningest driver on the World of Outlaws series, but he has been just unbelievably consistent, piling up a lot of top 5s, a lot of top 10s along the way. So if he can continue just to finish on the podium for these remaining 5 races, it really won't matter what Hoffman and Pierce are able to do. He should be able to hold on and win the championship. But one misstep, like we talked about with Lucas, with only 5 to go, one misstep could be disastrous for any one of the 3 if either Pierce or Hoffman have a bad finish and say come in 18th or something like that in one of these features. That'll pretty much doom their chances of winning the championship. And the same could be said for Sheppard. That 54-point lead could evaporate very quickly should he have a bad night either in Louisiana or Texas here this weekend, or on one of the 3 nights in Charlotte. Could really hurt his chances too. So why this matters for this weekend is, the points championship is on the line. There's just a few races remaining, so we'll be watching to see, can Sheppard hold on to that lead, or can either Hoffman or Pierce cut into that lead and go into Charlotte, who knows, perhaps even dead even if they're able to cut in, or at least with a realistic chance of coming away from there with the championship. So that's why this matters. And then lastly, NASCAR is on its way to the Kansas Speedway. All 3 of the NASCAR divisions, the NASCAR Cup Series, the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, are all in action here this weekend, as well as the ARCA Menard Series is also racing there. So it's a big weekend in Kansas. Coming out of last weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway, had 4 drivers be eliminated. Of course, you start off the NASCAR playoffs with 16 drivers in contention. The first cut was made after the race in Bristol. You had Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex Jr., Ty Gibbs, and Harrison Burton. Sorry about that. Were lost to the playoff hunt. Now the points are reset to a degree, with Kyle Larson have dominated last week in the night race at Bristol. Now has 5 wins, which gives him the playoff lead as of right now. So here's why this matters as far as Kansas is concerned. Out of these 12, of course, after the next 3 races, there are going to be another 4 eliminated. Kansas this weekend might very well be the only predictable race in this round because you've got it's a mile and a half, pretty straightforward. The racing there has been incredible over the last few years. Kyle Larson, of course, won this past spring at Kansas, beating Chris Buescher. I believe it's by 1/1000th of a second, the closest finish ever. Even with all the telemetry they had, they still had to go to the photo camera at the finish line to determine that Larson had won that race. And that's just indicative of what the racing's been like at Kansas Speedway. But still, nonetheless, it's relatively predictable compared to the other two races in this round, which, of course, the next one after Kansas is the Talladega Superspeedway, where, of course, pack racing take place all day long, 3 and 4 wide for all 500 miles of that race. And there's always that looming big one that could come. And, of course, it's indiscriminate as to who it takes out. When and if it happens, and it's more likely of when it happens than if it'll happen. But playoff contenders could be wiped out as well as non-playoff contenders. This is where the playoff guys have to really be concerned, where there could be a big wreck started that could take them out. It could be started by someone who's not in the playoffs or somebody who's been eliminated from the playoffs, but it could doom their chances as well. So after Talladega, then you go into the Charlotte Roval, and throughout its history of being used as a NASCAR track, it has shown that it can throw in some unpredictability as well. So, and some NASCAR guys are good road course racers and some are not. And of course, you have that possibility of those road course ringers like a Shane Van Gisbergen, who will be full-time next year with Trackhouse, could step in there and win the race, which would take away from the opportunity to use this race to get that automatic advancement into the next round. So why this matters is Kansas, it's really important for the playoff contenders in NASCAR to get off to a good start at Kansas, because there's so much of an unknown coming up at Talladega and the Charlotte Roval here to wrap up this round. But anyway, this is going to be a big racing weekend, and it already has been a big racing weekend in that those Lucas Oil races are either postponed or canceled. Who knows? They might be lost altogether. One or two of those at Brownstown might be saved. You've got the World of Outlaws Case Construction Late Model Series with two big events in Texas and Louisiana coming up this weekend. We'll see what happens there. And, of course, NASCAR, everybody's looking to get off to a good start in the second round of the playoffs. So that's why this weekend matters. I'm Richard Allen of MotorsportsReport.net saying I will see you at the track.